We're live.
Working, dude. How you been, man? Long time no talk. Long time no
I
see.
know. I've been good, man. I've been good. Just keeping it busy over here. My son just had his first birthday, so we had a busy
Uh-huh.
weekend. He had a birthday party, and man, had both the families, had the in-laws and my parents in town. So just enjoying family time. It's been good, man. I can't complain at all.
Heck yeah. How's your leg doing?
Leg is good. Recovery is going well. Feeling good, feeling strong. So, all things leading good.
That's it, man. So, are you able to do anything? Or are you still kind of like in a boot, or what's going on? What's the situation there?
Yeah, no, I'm able to do some stuff, some exercises and stuff. So, that's positive. One day at a time. It's going to be a long recovery. So, I already know that, but it's going well.
For sure, for sure. So,
What up, Buddy Love? I see you on here. Shout out to the A's and Buddy Love, Colt Sedbrook. What's going on, everybody? A lot of love, a lot of love.
what's new, man? It's been a couple weeks. We had some scheduling conflicts. You had some, just some family time, just recovering and doing some different things. Same thing over here. So we're back at it. It's been a 3-week hiatus, but we're back, charged up, ready to go. You got some good content. You're fired up. You had a podcast just the other day with Tim Corbin from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
give me give me
Podcast with
give me a little.
Vanderbilt's head baseball coach. I mean,
Yeah, buddy.
I haven't released it yet just because so much good knowledge and
Yeah.
so much just to be able to build the hype for it. I want
Heck yeah.
everybody to be able to hear this thing and be able to see it, the video, and so many good nuggets that he drops in there. So it's something that I definitely want to get out to the masses, get out to all the college athletes, the amateur athletes, professional athletes, everybody. This is something that's it was an amazing sit down because he doesn't do interviews and
Right.
podcasts. He doesn't do the Zoom at all. So it was very special. Luckily, my brother-in-law went to Vanderbilt, so I was able to get that connection through him. So it was
Gotcha.
amazing experience.
Gotcha. So he's just kind of like old school dude, just doesn't really do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, super old school. But the good thing is he's evolving a lot. Obviously, the best college coach in the game right now. Two championships in the last 6 years, so that's unheard
Yeah.
of. So it's cool.
Yeah, buddy. So tell me about it. What's on your heart today? What's on your mind today that you want to talk about on this episode of the X Factor with my man right here, Xavier Scruggs?
Yeah, yeah. I just back again on X Factor. I think one of the big things today I want to talk about is that preparation for college. Obviously, a lot of athletes, especially high school athletes, are thinking and looking toward going to college, but they need to have a plan. They need to be prepared. And some are looking for the draft, the baseball draft, but at the same time, you need to be prepared for the next level, whatever it may be. And even the guys in college and all athletes really, they need to be able to have a prepare and have a plan for the next level. And I think sitting down with Tim Corbin gave me so much insight as to what the top programs are looking for in a player. And when they get to the school, what are they looking to evolve and how are they looking to develop a player so that they can even play at the next level? And also breaking down what success looks like to every player, because that's totally different. Some high school players right now, they're not going to have a chance to go to D1 at the moment.
Right.
It's not going to be their route. But Tim Corbin was able to break down to me that those players should stay just as encouraged as the D1 athlete because there's so many avenues today, especially to get to the professional level. Um, and that's something that I soaked in from him and just listened to him. I was in awe. I was like, I almost like fumbled the questions because I was like, man, this guy is I just want to sit down and talk with him and just ask him more of my own selfish questions. So just so much good stuff, man. And I wanted to be able to give it back and provide it on the Prospect Dugout platform, because I think that a lot of the athletes, a lot of the baseball players, from your platform, they're going to want to know this type of stuff. So I thought it was a great opportunity to share it.
Heck yeah. Well, one thing that I'm starting to see now that we're however many months we are into this pandemic, I'm starting to see people take things a little bit more seriously in the sense of it could be taken away from you and you might not be able to play anymore. You might not be able to do the things that you want to do. So I'm starting to see some players, some personalities, some people in the game are actually, starting to take things a little bit more seriously. And I think, talking about preparation for college, that's the topic for today. But when you were kind of just, giving an overview on that interview that you had with Coach Tim, I just wrote down 5 things. I wrote down preparation for college: grades, job, life, training, and a balance of school, sports, and life. You can't just show up at college and expect to have everything figured out. Like I was talking with my son today, like you got things that you got to worry about when you get to college. You're not going to have the support system that you have now when you go to Western Carolina. You're going to be on your own. You're going to have to make decisions on your own. You're going to have to get up on time every day, no exceptions. You're going to have to make sure that your grades are accountable, that you're going to, study hall when you need to, that you're making sure that you're earning money and that you're doing your training, and that you're also spending time away from school and spending time away from the sport. So that way you can actually have a life. So I think that, some of those things people are starting to realize now that crap, we didn't have baseball, we didn't have spring season, and then some states were limited what they could do in the summer for travel ball, and then in the
Right.
fall, I know here down in Bradenton, Bradenton, Florida, a lot of the local baseball high schools are creating their own league, so they're going to be playing in the fall a mini high school schedule, because you're really not going to know what you're going to get when it comes to the Florida High School Athletic Association in the spring. So they're kind of doing their own thing, making sure they're sticking to guidelines and making sure everything is safe and the protocols are in place, but they need to get out there. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people making decisions and not making excuses. They're making decisions and not making excuses. So instead of saying, oh, we can't do this, or, oh, look at this circumstance, they're just going out and they're just making something happen, and taking the circumstances and the situations that they're in and saying, you know what, instead of looking at all the things that I'm missing out on, instead of looking at all the things that I can't do, let's look at what I'm presented with and make the best out of this opportunity and move forward.
Yeah, no, and that's actually one of the first points that Corbin actually mentioned to me on the Extraordinary Athletes podcast, is that you have to remember that everybody has lost opportunities during this time. It's not just you selfishly, but it's everybody that has lost opportunities, whether it's a season, whether it's athletes that lost the opportunity to get drafted, whether they lost the opportunity to really perform, really get into their routine, whatever it may be. Vanderbilt was ranked 5th in the nation, obviously another opportunity for them to go back to the College World Series. But I asked him, I said, what were some of the things that really kept your players focused during this quarantine time? And he said, X, this has been a great time for us. He said, we have to remember, and they have a classroom setting there at Vanderbilt, which a lot of schools now have with their programs, but they have almost like a life skills course every day, 45 minutes to an hour. And they talk about everybody's lost opportunities, but you have to find a way to move forward. And we've talked about this before. It's like, if we're an athlete, we're not going to be able to make excuses all the time. We have to find a way to use the opportunities that we have. We have to really find a way to separate ourselves from somebody else. Everybody is going through something similar during this time or during the time in the past. And if you have an opportunity now to progress and maybe get back to a certain routine, don't lose sight of that. Remember how it felt these past few weeks, these past few months of not having that same routine and that same time. So go even harder at it. So that was something that he mentioned first, because I wanted to hit him and find out, okay, during this quarantine time, what's different from your team than everybody else? What are you trying to do? And he basically said what you just said. I don't want to make excuses. Things could be much worse for people. Everybody has a different situation. So he was like, I want to let my Vandy boys know that it could be much worse. So I thought that was something that important that he mentioned. And he also mentioned another thing that kind of breaks down, not even necessarily on the field, but enjoy what you have today. Because like you said, you don't know when it's going to be gone.
Right.
We don't know when we're not going to be able to play this game, or we don't know when we're not going to be able to coach or instruct or whatever it may be. So enjoy it while you have it during today. Like for me, I want to enjoy being able to sit down with you on Prospect Dugout and talk about, okay, what are these intangibles that the players need to know? how can we make them better? That's both of our goal right now. And that's something that Tim Corbin expressed to me as well. It's like, not only did he want to develop players, and this is another thing that's made him different as a coach, is not only does he want to develop players and have them be first rounders, have them be successful in the major leagues, which he's done a lot of, he wants to develop young men and bring players that are like-minded together within the Vanderbilt organization or the Vanderbilt program. So one thing that I want to tell to players, especially high school, even middle school, even college guys, like, if you're looking at a certain program or a certain college that you really love, like, look at what their program stands for. Look at what that school stands for, the values, the morals, and try to align yourself with those things, or check to see if you're aligned with those things. Because that's how I know, okay, if I'm not aligned with some of Vanderbilt's values in their own school and their college program, then that's probably not the right school for me, right? So try to align yourself with, and you can do this too by going to the school's camps. If you love a certain school, this is another thing he said too, is attend the camp, because that's when you learn more about the program.
Right.
You're going to get an inside look, and you'll find out if everything aligns the same way you wish it to or you want it to. So I think that's important to do. And he conveyed that really well.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that kind of just stood out to me from that was, and dude, a lot of stupid comments on the IG. I've been going and deleting all these comments. People just need to wake up a little bit. But like-minded players, like that's a good thing to talk about, because it's not just about throwing 95. It's not just about being able to hit a home run. It's about being able to unite as a team, being able to come together and do the things that it takes to win. Like, I mean, I look at my son's team. His team is not filled with D1 studs. His team is not a team that, just is a bunch of talent. It's a bunch of grinders. Like, nobody really stands out. Like, it takes everybody participating, bunting, sacrifice fly, scoring a run on a double play. Like, they get hyped over that stuff because it's getting them closer to the end goal. And so they're a part of a team whose goal is not to be the best player on the team, but to be the best team in the tournament and building up and supporting their teammates. One thing that I wanted to hit on about what you said, that Tim said that everybody's lost opportunities during this time. So if you want to, you can think of it, you haven't really lost an opportunity. In a sense, it's just your circumstances have changed. So you can look at it as a lost opportunity and say, oh, woe is me. Oh, look at all this stuff I was used to be able to do. We used to do this. This is how we used to do it. And people just don't want to make that change. Like when you're changing your lifestyle or getting on a diet or going to the gym and working out, or New Year's resolution, I'm going to get in there and work out. You're not committed to it. You really don't want to do it. Right. It's something that's not the same as what you're used to doing. So it's kind of hard. But when you can look at it in the sense of, you know what, I now have the opportunity to say, okay, baseball was different in the spring. Baseball was different in the summer. I can either focus on that, or I can make the adjustments, and I can, I can find out what I need to do to make sure that I'm at the top of my game for whatever the situation provides. Like, thinking about Major League Baseball changing to 7-inning doubleheaders, like, okay, it is what it is. Like, you may not like it. You may not like the runner on second base with nobody else in the extra innings. You may not like, just put him on first base. I don't have to throw 4 pitches. You don't have to like it, but it's a part of the game. So you can sit there and you can complain about what's going on, or you can take the new information and say, you know what, I can't use this. You just check things off your list. I can't use that anymore. Can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. And oh, well, I'm still good. I'm still understanding of the things that I need to do to become a better player. I just have to modify the way that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And somebody mentioned here, like, I think Anthony Tenuto, he said it's all about the grind. And that's another way to kind of put it, is like, there's going to be distractions, there's going to be changes all the time, but it's all about how you kind of conform to those or evolve from that. And that also brought up another quote that he said, Tim Corbin said during our podcast, and it was that even he tries to reinvent himself every year. He tries to make changes and find a way to get better every year. And I think that's something that we have to remember as an athlete, is if we're able to make make some subtle changes, whether they be small, whether they be big, like find a way to make yourself better every year.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be the same athlete that you were last year. And that's something that a specific question I asked him, because I said, you're at the top of your game. Everybody wants to be you. You're the best of the best. Like, what more is there for you to do? Like, how do you evolve? And he said, just plain and simple, is like, I haven't done anything yet. And I think that's the mindset that we have to look at ourselves, especially as athletes, is like, really, what have I done? Like, if I'm done doing all I need to do, then I can just hang them up,
Mm-hmm.
but something has to keep you going, and you have to keep that mindset, that attitude. It's like, no, I haven't done anything yet. If I want to be the best of the best or get to that next level, like, I have to keep performing and reinventing myself and figuring out how I'm going to get better, because like you said, circumstances are going to change all the time. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
be best prepared for those. If you're, like he said, quote unquote, reinventing yourself every year. And another thing that he mentioned is, and these are always like the toughest things as athletes for us to work on, is like the small fundamental things, I
Oh
feel like,
man.
and
Yeah.
he was saying like the foundations of those things matter. And he said, not just in sport, but in life. The small decisions that you make, like every small decision that you make can affect the rest of your life. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing, as high school athletes and as college athletes, we need to remember, is like, we always have a decision-making process, and finding somebody like a Tim Corbin or somebody like a mentor or coach that can really help you with those things, that's going to help you get on the line for success down the road. So continue to make the right decisions, continue to be focused on the small decisions, the small fundamentals. That was something that he really emphasized to me on the podcast, and it was something that really hit home.
Every small decision that you make affects the rest of your life. And what stands out to me right there, it's not about the right decision or the wrong decision. It's simply a decision. Because that's one thing that I feel like some people don't understand, is that not making a decision is making a decision. You're choosing one option. You can choose to look at your circumstances and act on it in a positive way, or you can ignore it.
Right.
Ignoring it is a decision, because it's not going to, like, if you pretend that it's not there and you keep doing the things that you were doing, well, the circumstances have changed. The way that you were preparing yourself, the way that you were practicing, the way that you were training, or the way that you were playing, or whatever the circumstance may be, isn't going to cut it anymore. So if you make a decision not to change, you're making a decision to not improve yourself. So every small decision you make affects the rest of your life, whether it's a positive decision or it's a negative decision. You said
Right.
The quote from Tim was that, he wanted or you want to reinvent yourself every year. And so the image that came to my mind immediately was Apple iPhone. It's literally the same phone. It's the same phone every year, but everybody goes out and buys it because it's got just an upgraded thing. It's got a new look about it. It's the same phone. There's
Right.
not, you're doing exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
but it's just got a couple added features. So you are the same player. You're not changed. Like, and that, I mean, shoot, we're going deep now. That's something I was thinking about yesterday, is that when you're 5 years old and the way that you act and the way that you react in situations and circumstances, and when you're 10 years old and 15 years old and 20 years old, you're still the same exact person. It's just that your experience and the way that you react and handle that situation is different. So if you're getting upset at something at 5 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, and then you go and you become a teenager and you get into your 20s and then get into life, like, the situations and the circumstances and who you aren't changing. You're just
Right.
learning how to interpret the data better. You're just learning from the experience. You're saying, you know what, I did that last time and it didn't help me. So let me do something different, or let me find something that works and continue doing that and improving that. But you are the same baseball player that you are. And if you continue doing the same things that you are, you're going to become like the iPhone 3, the iPhone 4, iPhone 5. Like, those were cool when all that stuff was cool, but
Yeah.
it ain't cool. Like, you see somebody with an iPhone 5 now and you're like, dang, that's an old iPhone. I mean, it's judgmental, but that's the thought that comes to your head, is like, dang, that's an old iPhone, right?
Yeah.
You reinvent yourself every year. And this year, we've really had to reinvent ourselves. We've really had to deal with outside situations that we can't really do anything about. And so I really like that. Every small decision that you make affects the rest of your life. When they're building, when you look at someone doing construction and they're building a building or building a house or whatever, they never start with the walls. They don't start with the roof. They don't
Right.
start with the paint. They start with the foundation. The foundation has to be solid. Before they put the foundation down, they've got to level the dirt, bring in extra dirt, make sure that there's a good drainage system. Because if it's not, as soon as the foundation wears away, everything else topples, right? So if you're making small decisions in a positive manner that are constantly reevaluating the situations that you're being placed in and the circumstances that are around you, it is definitely going to affect your life, but in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's huge. And that's what the end goal is. Like, we all want a positive impact on our own lives and the lives around each other people around us. So I think that's a great point as well. And something that he mentioned along those same lines is like, have care. Like, I asked him specifically, what are the things that you're looking for, maybe that says, hey, this player, I'm crossing off the list. This is someone I don't want to recruit. And he said he's specifically looking for players who care about little things, from their equipment to how they prepare for the game to how they react after they fail. Um, he didn't mention anything about talent. He
Mm-hmm.
said, if I'm recruiting a player or if I'm looking at a player, I already know he has talent. He's like, I want to see all the little things that make him a perfect fit for the program or a perfect fit for a top program. He said, I want to know if he's going to treat his equipment the right way. As far
Mm-hmm.
as, and I said, what about like somebody, she's talking about somebody that strikes out, throwing his bat, throwing his glove, whatever. And he's like, yeah, not only that, but he said, how does he take care of his equipment before he
Mm.
even starts the game? Is he coming in holding his equipment the right way? Or is he coming in giving his equipment to his parents? Like, that's the kind of stuff that he was talking about. And I thought it was so detailed, and nothing almost had to do with him on a player on the field. He was like, how does he actually get to the ballpark? I want to get there early and see how he even gets to the ballpark. Does he come sloppy with his jersey on, or does he come in his shorts and his
Mm-hmm.
flip-flops? Because he said, I can kind of tell how a person prepares just by the way that they show up and the way that they leave as well. So he's like, I want to know if this player is smiling and happy because he went 4 for 4. But if his team lost 10-0, then I don't know if that person is the perfect fit for Vanderbilt, or I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if the person is perfect fit for a top program. You
Mm-hmm.
have to recognize, okay, I understand what's going on around me. I have some feel for my teammates, have some feel for the game. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was really important because those things have nothing to do with talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a tough situation too, because you're really not playing high school travel ball and youth travel ball the same way that you're playing a college schedule, where you're together as a team for a specific schedule and you're always together. Travel ball is more like, hey, we're getting together on the weekend. So that's a tough situation to go 4 for 4, lose 10-0, because you may only be with that team for one weekend or 2 weekends. So I definitely agree with the comment, but just in kind of analyzing it, it's a tough situation for certain kids, because you know what,
Yeah.
if you're guest playing because you are an elite player and you want to go to these events that you can get exposure and get extra reps and things like that, there's a balance. There's a balance between, like you said, going 4 for 4 and losing 10-0. What were you doing? Did you go 4 for 4 and you're down 7-0 and you got your third hit and you're getting on base and you're clapping it up, and it's like, okay, wait a second, that's not the right situation. I need
Right.
7 more of these just to get within a home run to tie the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, being able to display yourself as a team player, but also confident in your ability. That's a tough that's a tough thing to do. And one thing that you talked about, um, you know, your equipment and things like that. I think that's funny because you see kids that come in and they toss their glove in the dugout, or they just toss their bag over here and they leave it all there and it's crumpled up and just fold. Like, dude, when I was in high school, like the shortstops, the middle infielders were putting their gloves together on the ground or on the bench. So that way, if one guy was left out on the bases, the other guy could bring his glove to him. The outfielders, all their gloves together, propped up nicely. So that way, hey, if two outfielders got stuck on the bases and the third one's on deck, all of a sudden the shortstop can bring the gloves out because he knows exactly where those are. And I think that there's been a lot of, in the last 10 or so years, with the rise of travel ball and little leagues kind of going away, because it's all about, I got to win. I got to put on a display so that way coaches will find me. Well, the best D1 coach in the land is saying that he's not even looking at the talent right away. He's looking at all these other things. So I think in the last 10 or so years, we've seen a decline in these little things. We've seen not a decline. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. We've seen a decline in the emphasis on these little things when it comes to the coaches that are leading these kids.
Yeah.
There's some coaches that have good intentions that are doing the best that they can, and props to them. There's some coaches that think they know everything and played only at the high school level. And so the ideas, the objectives, and all the things that they know come from that lower level. And as you know, once you get to college, once you get to minor league baseball and then major league baseball, a lot of that stuff gets trimmed down. Like it's like you're whittling a stick. Like when you hold the stick up, it's a stick, but if you spend some time with it and get rid of the excess, you can create something, really, really good. And so I think that's, for us at Prospect Dugout, that's what we're trying to do, is to display it's not just about the talent, it's about the desire, it's about the work ethic. That's why when we're building our app, it's not just about, hey, let's post a video. Well, let's post what you're doing. What have you been doing? What is your practice schedule like? What events are you going to coming up? How have you been training for the last 6 months? What are the different things that you're working on? And it's not to show off. We created it in a way so that players are now thinking about those things. They're thinking about, how do I implement these things to make sure that I'm showing what kind of a player I am? Because just like you said, it's not about going 4 for 4 if your team's losing 10-0 and you're all excited. So I really think that being able to pay attention to those little things, from cleaning your cleats to bringing a glove out to somebody that was left on base, to encouraging your team, to paying attention in the on deck circle, or being the guy that, there's a kid on my son's team that he really doesn't ever play, but I never see him copping an attitude. I never see him sulking. Anytime there's a situation where there needs to be a base runner, a pinch runner, or a pinch hitter, dude's got his helmet on. He's ready to go in case he's called. He doesn't get called very often, but when the time goes out to play defense, what does he do? He makes the plays. He doesn't go in and become a liability. So I think knowing your role will help you when you're thinking about, doing these little things and trying to be a team player.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that kind of speaks to something Corbin talked about too. And I think I mentioned it a little earlier, is like everybody's avenue, everybody's, route, everybody's path is different. That kid that may not play as much knows that his role is different than everybody else's, but he's prepared. Like somebody on the somebody on the Instagram said preparation is huge key to success. Great stuff. So the kid is prepared. Like he knows that's his role. And success may be for him to be able to get to maybe a D3, a JC, and be on the team and maybe go from there. But so everybody's role is different. And he said like that's where you don't want to always compare yourself. Even another thing he mentioned about that too is like just the whole process of trying to commit to a college or go to the next level is like, don't just commit because everybody else is committing because they're a freshman or a sophomore. Don't make sure your process is different than somebody else's. You may not commit until you're a senior. You may be a walk-on somewhere, So he said, don't worry so much about not having a school at a certain point. He said, just be ready when it's your time. Understand that your process is totally different and your progress is totally different than somebody else's. And I thought that was an amazing point as well, because I'm sure there's so many athletes today that feel like, oh, I got to make a verbal commitment because everybody else is committing somewhere, but is that the right process for you? Does that equate to, okay, I know this is exactly where I want to go or where I have hopes to go? So I think that's important too. And we've talked about this too, is like not comparing ourselves to everybody else is everybody else's environment, everybody else's plan.
Dude, I was listening to a good podcast the other day, the Cardone Zone with Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
And they were talking about there's two things. There's dreams and there's goals. Dreams are the big picture things. I want to play Major League Baseball. I want to be a shortstop for the New York Yankees for 20 years, and I want to win 5 World Series, and I want to make the Hall of Fame. Whatever. That's a dream. Dream big.
Right.
But don't make that your goal, because how are you going to mark that off? You've got to take your dream and your goal and separate them. Take the goal and say, okay, my goal is I want to get to my dream. What is the next step in the process? Boom. That's my goal. Once I get close to my goal, I reevaluate and say, okay, I'm taking the information that I got, the experience that I've gained, boom, another goal, and keeps you pushing, keeps you moving forward to that dream. We can't get duped into thinking that just because I want to do it, it's going to happen, because that leads to laziness. Like I can want to plant a garden in the backyard, but until I go get some soil and a box and some seeds, ain't nothing growing in the backyard except for weeds unless I cut them. Right. So it's good to have dreams. And I think that was something that when I was younger, I had no idea about. Honestly, I had a dream to play at the professional level, at the big league level. And from where I was as a 8, 9, 10, 11, even into high school, where I was as that person to my dream, there was no roadmap. There was no even thought process into what was next. And it wasn't because I guess I just didn't think about it, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know. And so that's essentially where I am now as a person in what I'm doing with Prospect Dugout. Is there's so many things that I could have done differently. I may not have made it, like I probably wouldn't have made it to the big leagues because my talent wasn't where it needed to be to perform. But I don't know that it couldn't have gotten there because I wasn't weightlifting in high school. I wasn't doing a lot of the things that kids are doing now at 10 years old, even as a senior in high school. So I have no idea if I would have gotten anywhere further. But my point is, there's a lot of things that I could have done. There's a lot of things that I should have done that I didn't know about, that I want to make sure the next generation of athletes can have an understanding about. And just like you just mentioned a minute ago, talking about D3 or JUCO or D1 or wherever, I think I sent you a screenshot or a video recording earlier of we're redoing our app. And so I sent you a little screenshot of that. But the purpose of parts of what we're building with the app is that a player in California with a certain skill set, certain age, certain position can record his skills, record what he's doing, record his content, and see what a player of the same exact variables, because there's players, Xavier, there's people in this world that are exactly the same type of person you are in terms of build, physical ability. Same thing with me, right? You just don't know them because you haven't met them, right? So if there's a way that we can say, okay, for a player that looks like this, behaves like this, acts like this, and plays like this, he's in California. Well, what about that same exact player playing against the competition in Florida? The competition in Florida is different than the competition in California. And the way that you navigate your games and your practices and your training in California may not cut it in Florida, because the players are just a little bit different. Or in Texas or New York or Iowa or South Dakota, it's a lot different. So if you can say, instead of waiting 15 years down the road to say, oh, that's how they did it, why can't we do that right now and say, okay, and I'm talking about just even outside the app, like you can research and figure out what comparable players are doing, how they're training, what they're doing to get better. Man, that kid hit a home run. Let me go research him. What has he been doing? How has he been training? Oh, he's working out at, overtime athletes 4 days a week, and he's working on his speed and his box jumps and things like that. That's why he runs a 6.360, not because he wishes he could run a 6.360, but because he's putting in the work. And how is he competing and what is he doing? And so I think it's very, very important for us, when you're preparing for college, that you actually have to prepare one step at a time. You got to get your grades right. You got to make sure you got some money to take care of yourself. You got to make sure that you got friends and that you got a life outside of school, outside of baseball. You got to make sure that you're putting in the work, not just when practice starts at 1:30 and it goes till 5. That's cool. That's a long day, but you got to put in some time elsewhere with something, whether that's working on an eye drill, whether that's working on, grabbing 2 tennis balls and trying to catch them or whatever, something crazy like that. If you're doing something that's going to push you forward. And then finally, just having an understanding of how to balance it all. If you never try, you will never know.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that you mentioned that Corbin mentioned as well is like those things about preparing for college or being in college, those are standards, values, habits, and routines. And he mentioned all those matter. Standards, values, habits, and routine, all those matter. And understanding you can do these things while still having fun. You can do all of these things while still having the college experience, the high school experience. And I think that's what some of the best athletes do, is realize, okay, I can put my energy toward what I need to do to get better, and I can still enjoy it. Right. I think that's the experience that we all want, whether that be in college, in our careers. Like we want to be able to make steps forward and still have fun while doing it, slow down the time and enjoy it. And I think you mentioned something important in talking about the steps. And like you didn't have a roadmap, and there's a lot of athletes that didn't have that. It's like, and that's what Prospect Dugout, Extraordinary Athletes, that's what platforms like that help provide. And I think that the better that younger players can understand, okay, this is something that I can use to better myself and use it consistently, that's the sky's the limit for that. And I think that that's what is so exciting about Prospect Dugout, is you guys are evolving to make things better, making steps and creating the roadmap for young players to have what you said you didn't have, to encourage players to be better and do these things and use these tools, because these are the things that are what we're talking about. These are the X factors. These are the things that are going to separate the one player from the next. So I think that's what's so cool about Prospect Dugout and Extraordinary Athletes and X Factor, because we can do these things on our platform, and it's fun.
I think there's one disclaimer, and we'll kind of wrap up. We've been on here for almost 45 minutes already. One disclaimer, right? You can do everything right. You can have the goals, you can have the roadmap, you can have all the steps in place, but the elite people, not just athletes, but people in general, people that are successful, right? There's no difference between anybody. You can be successful, I can be successful. You cannot be successful, I cannot be successful, right?
Right.
In all of the little steps that we take, the elite understand that it's not guaranteed, that just because you put in the work and put in the steps and do the things does not mean that you're going to attain what you set out for. What the elite do and what the successful people do, and this is something else that I heard on another podcast, was that you pivot. And you take everything that you've done and you say, I got to here, but it's just not working out. That doesn't mean that I stop and start over. It just means that I was going in this direction and now I've got to go in this direction because I've got to make an adjustment. My dream is this, and I'm hitting my goals, but guess what? I just run a 7.2 and I can't hit the ball out of the ballpark, and I can only throw 83 on the mound. There's nothing that you can do about that. And it's not a knock on anybody. You still have the passion, you still have the desire, you still have the mental strength and the toughness and the determination to put in the work for something that may not be achieved. And that's something to be proud of. That's something to be encouraged by, that even though the circumstances, the situations, and the outcomes all look like they weren't going to be in your favor, you still pursued it, not ignorantly, not on a whim, not doing, I'm talking about being serious with it. You still pursued everything, and you tried. And from that point, you've now gained experience, you've gained understanding, and you can apply it to different things, and you can make better decisions and more influential decisions in your life.
Boom. That's the mic drop. That's the mic drop right there.
Oh man.
No, that's solid stuff, man. And
why don't you give us a little just a little wrap up as we close up the X Factor on this Saturday? This Tuesday. It's been a long weekend, bro. Labor Day weekend down in Fort Myers. It was hot. It was like 112 degrees.
That's funny, man. Well, yeah, just wrapping up kind of our conversation as far as preparation and, growing in the college atmosphere, being prepared for college, getting ready to make that leap to the next step. I think we talked about a lot of the things Tim Corbin presented to me on the Extraordinary Athletes podcast. First being talking about this quarantine time that we've had is that everybody has lost something, but that's everybody. So it's okay. Like everybody's going through the same things or similar things, but you have to move forward. Secondly, we talked about reinventing ourselves. You talked about the iPhone. It's been the iPhone, the same thing year after year, but it makes little changes. It makes it better. We look back and see somebody may have the iPhone 5, like, but you haven't grown, you haven't changed since then. So
Right.
just being able to find ways to reinvent ourselves, make ourselves better. Thirdly, making those small, intentional decision-making process, being smart about that. Small things lead to success, and they build self-esteem. Uh, and another thing that we mentioned today is that standards, values, habits, routines all
Yes.
matter. And those are all very important. So a few of the things that we mentioned today, and I think that it just all kind of supersedes and surrounds the same things we've been talking about with X Factor, and finding a way to separate ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
just want to encourage the players,
Yeah.
all the athletes, keep doing what you guys do. Keep checking out what Prospect Dugout is providing. Keep checking out what we're providing at Extraordinary Athletes, which is xoathletes.com. And X Factor, we're bringing it to you every week. So stay live
Let's
on
do
here.
it. I lost you on the IG live, but that's okay. That's okay. We're
Oh
still here
man,
on
what happened?
Facebook. It said that you left.
Oh.
Trying to get you back.
Oh, I got like an Amber Alert, I think.
Uh-oh. Waiting for you. There you go. You connecting again. There it is.
Yeah.
My man. So why don't you give us just a closing thought, a closing minute as we wrap up today?
Yeah. Closing thought here at X Factor is, I think one of the biggest things is what stems from what we talked about today is, every little decision can affect your path, and don't compare your path to somebody else's. So just be encouraged. Even if you're looking at a JC, looking at a D3, looking at the major leagues, like your path to get there is going to be totally different than the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
So find a way to success for all of those, and don't be so concerned about the next guy.
And your path to the major leagues may not even exist, but the process along the way can still be there, and it can
That's another
still
thing.
it.
That's another thing. Not to cut you off. Corbin mentioned to me. He said that when he was a player, he wished that he went to the University of Maine, but I think he went to Ohio Wesleyan. And he said, if I didn't go to Ohio Wesleyan, like I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you
Mm-hmm.
today. Like, so
100%.
who knows the path?
Yeah, it's not that Maine was wrong for him or Ohio Wesleyan was better for him. That's just how life worked. And if he wouldn't have made that decision, basically what he was saying, if he would have said, you know what, I really like kids are I see okay, I see this going on now. If I'm not going D1, I'm not going to college. Well, why not? Like if he would have said, if Tim Corbin would have said, oh, I'm not going to Maine, I'm not going to Ohio Wesleyan, we wouldn't have him coaching Vanderbilt. He might be coaching
Right.
somewhere else. He might be coaching at a JUCO or a D3, or he may be an insurance salesman. You never know. The bottom line is exactly what he said. Every small decision that you make affects the rest of your life. That's the mic drop right there. That's it. All right, man. Well, it was a good episode. We're back at it. If the IG live messed up a little bit, you guys can go to facebook.com/prospect dugout and watch the full uninterrupted video there, or you can go to YouTube and search Prospect Dugout and watch it there as well. I'm Joel Hartman with Prospect Dugout, and I'm hanging with my boy Xavier Scruggs, Extraordinary Athletes, xoathletes.com. Follow him on Instagram. You're on ESPN doing stuff with the KBO. You're interviewing all kinds of big league players, other professional athletes, big time college coaches. Like, dude, like I see you with like a backdrop. I see you writing books now, all the stuff I see on Instagram and Facebook. Dude, I'm telling every small decision that you make affects the rest of your life. You're making tons of small decisions. I'm serious. The content that I'm seeing from you on Instagram and Facebook is crazy. I'm like, dang, I didn't know X was doing that. I just saw him at the beach. What is he doing?
No, I appreciate that, man.
It's good,
Appreciate
man. I love it. So great episode. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, 1 p.m. right here, Instagram Live and on Facebook. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're out. Peace.